The media is going to tell you the United States Navy made it through Hormuz. That's true, but that's not the real story. The real story is that America just had to force open one of the most important sea lanes on Earth with destroyers, with aircraft, with helicopters, and crews operating inside of a missile target. There were drones overhead, mines in the water, and fast boats all around these ships. That is not normal commerce. That is forced passage. I spent 20 years in the United States Navy. I know what a constrained waterway does to your options. It shrinks them, it restricts them. Everything becomes tighter and a more important decision. When you're in open water, you have room to maneuver. In a choke point, that room disappears fast. You have no options, or you're going to run aground or you're going to hit something, and very well could hit one of these mines. Your reaction time, it collapses. Your threat picture gets crowded, and every decision becomes compressed. That is what the Strait of Hormuz does. That's what happens when you transit any of these channels, like going through the Strait of Gibraltar. It is a nightmare. It is a sonar supervisor on a submarine. At that point, that job is more stressful than a air traffic controller at LaGuardia Airport. This turns the transit into a test. And right now, Iran may have set the perfect trap. Not because they can defeat the U.S. Navy ship for ship. They can't. The trap is making every ship that passes through Hormuz look like it's rolling the dice. And that's what we need to talk about here. And even CBS News is recognizing this. 2 U.S. Navy destroyers transit the Strait of Hormuz after dodging Iranian onslaught. This was yesterday. They came out with this last night. It says 2 U.S. Navy destroyers transited the Strait of Hormuz, entered the Persian Gulf under navigating an Iranian barrage, according to defense officials. The USS Truxtun, USS Mason, supported by Apache helicopters, and other aircraft faced a series of coordinated threats during the passage. The defense official said Iran launched small boats, missiles, and drones against them in what officials described as a sustained barrage. Let that sink in for a second, okay? Just think about that. Despite the intensity of the attacks, neither U.S. vessel was struck. Military officials said that the defensive measures, bolstered by air support, successfully intercepted or deterred each incoming threat. There's rumors that there were like 11 missiles launched. Think about that, okay? They added no projectiles that were launched reached the ships. The transit comes after President Trump announced Sunday that the U.S. would help guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz, crucial choke point. We all know that, right? Hundreds of petroleum tankers are stranded there and have been stuck in the Persian Gulf for months, driving up global oil prices. Not only that, they're probably running out of diesel fuel for their generators. The crews on board those ships, no telling what they're eating. I've been on a couple of deployments where we went up north, and by the time we got back, we were eating beanie weenies for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, and for mid-rats. And if you've been on a northern run, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You start every patrol walking around on cans covered with cardboard. You eat your way down to the actual floor, and you're literally drinking White Death, which is powdered milk. You're eating crackers, and your beanie weenies, or your pillows of death. We also called the raviolis that. But we'll get back to that in another submarine story. But the U.S. Military Central Command said earlier Monday the American destroyers had traveled through the strait as part of the initiative dubbed Project Freedom. The military did not specify which or how many naval vessels were involved. That's key. Central Command said 2 U.S. flagged commercial ships also transited the strait successfully. So we went in and got our guys, right? And the military has reached out to dozens of other shippers to encourage traffic flow. Now, we saw yesterday, or a couple of days ago, where this Admiral Brad Cooper, this 4-star admiral, actually went to the Strait of Hormuz and got in an Apache helicopter. I think he's a pilot, and he flew the strait himself. So this is a 4-star putting it on the line. This is huge. I'm going to show you here. I'm going to pull up this map so you can see this. And they've actually got it marked here on this map. So right here, we've got a Maersk. This is a U.S. flagged vehicle carrier. So it's carrying cars, or that's what it was dropping off. And then up here, we have the CBS News is citing this is where the transit happened. And then they're confirming the transit. And then we've got CENTCOM confirming F-16 fighter jets patrolling near the Strait of Hormuz. Now, there's rumors that Bandar Abbas, this is this Iranian port here, that there have been airstrikes or some explosions in that port. I can't confirm if that's American forces or not. Very well could be Israeli. At this point, I don't really care. Now, Dubai and the United Arab Emirates down here, they have been going through this barrage of attacks by the Iranians as well. And the Iranians are really running out of allies. They are finished with allies. Now, once we've done this once, we know we can do it again. And the question is not whether the United States can force its way through the Strait of Hormuz one time. The question is whether we can keep it open long enough, safely enough, and set an example consistently enough for some of these global commercial ships to believe the route is still available and usable. That is the Hormuz Trap. And I believe that is how the Iranians are going to try and leverage that, we can't do anything, right? Now, with President Trump, he came out a little later this afternoon, and he posted this on True Social. Based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we've during the campaign against the country of Iran, the fact that progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran, we have mutually agreed while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom, the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. So we're going to pause this on the heels of what we just did. I think we did this to show the Iranians we can do whatever we want, okay? 2 U.S. naval destroyers transiting the strait entered the Persian Gulf to support the extraction of 2 United States flag vessels. During that transit, they reportedly faced coordinated threat environment from Iran, drones, missiles, fast attacks, the constant concern of mines in the water. And now the average person, that may sound like a dramatic headline, but from an operational standpoint, from someone that's been in the Navy and been in some of these threatening waters where people are actually looking for us, dragging things behind their ships, looking for us. I mean, it sounds like a nightmare, but the crews on this ship these are trained professionals. Because the crew is not just watching one thing. They're watching the air for drones. They're watching radar for missiles. They're watching the surface for small boats. They're watching the water for mines. We got sonar for that. They're coordinating with aircraft overhead. They're protecting themselves. And then some of them are sleeping because they're going to be coming on watch soon. Some of them are working in the galley. They're protecting commercial ships. They're doing all of this inside of one of the most important choke points in the world. That is not a casual Navy transit. This is a full pressure test. And the fact that these ships made it through matters. It tells you the crews were ready. It tells you the defensive posture worked. And I think it gives more weight to the president's statement here saying we're going to pause Project Freedom. We know we can do it. And it sends a message. And the message is pretty clear. As soon as Trump came out with this, crude oil prices dropped 2.5% on the president's 180 words, or how many ever characters you're allowed to spend, right? That tells you what, this is amazing to see. Now, the other thing is we've got this guy here, Danny Citrinowicz. He's a kind of a Middle Eastern expert, Middle East national security intelligence expert. He comes out and he brings up some very solid points here, right? The fundamental question we should be asking about U.S. policy toward Iran is simple. What is the actual objective? I believe the actual objective, this is just my opinion, and he goes on as well. If the goal is freedom of navigation, the president has the diplomatic tools to ensure the Strait of Hormuz remains open. I'm not sure about that because I'm going to push back a little bit here because I don't believe any of our diplomatic allies that we've had in the past are really our allies right now. France said they're not getting involved, right? They dropped their guns and ran away. If the goal is to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, then there's well-established mechanisms such as limits on enrichment. Iran doesn't listen to limits. They don't listen to rules. They don't follow rules. They do what they want. It says here, but if the goal is a broader meaning, ending Iran's regional influence or eliminating its control over the strategic choke points, then we're no longer talking about containment or deterrence. We're talking about regime change. And then he says that's where the core problem lies. I think the president of the United States wants a combination of all three of these. He wants Iran to follow the guidelines, not enrich uranium. You can have it for nuclear power. You can buy that. But he doesn't want them enriching their own. He doesn't want the Iranians to control the most important choke point in the world. We don't want them to be able to hold the world ransom. And then last but not least, I believe the president does want regime change. When you have an Ayatollah that kills 40,000 plus of their own citizens, why wouldn't you want to get rid of that leader? Now, we've got this cardboard cutout. We don't know where he's at. But I think that's what's happening. And that's what's unfolding right now on the world stage. The other big thing that we really have to address is there's so many countries dependent on Iran. There's a lot of pressure on Iran. And whenever we run two ships through there unfettered with that sort of air support, we send a message to Iran that you can't influence us. And it tells everyone that's dependent on Iran, maybe Iran's in over their heads. And I'll ask you, what do you think? Is Iran in over their heads? Are they negotiating with the United States, thinking that they have leverage? Because I don't think they have any leverage. And that's good news. Because the part nobody wants to say out loud, if it takes destroyers, air support, helicopters, and a full defensive posture just to get two flagged vessels out of the Persian Gulf, then the Strait of Hormuz is not really open in the way that the global economy needs it to be open. It may be passable. It may be controllable for short windows, but that's not the same thing as open. There's a big difference between freedom of navigation and forced passage. We know that, right? Because I want to show you here. Freedom of navigation means all of these ships can go through without any problem. That's what that means. And right now, I don't believe that the Iranians are prepared to allow freedom of navigation. That's my thoughts on this entire thing. And as long as they are not allowing freedom of navigation, the United States Navy is going to be there. We are going to maintain that posture. Because freedom of navigation means all of these ships with red, meaning they're anchored, could move as they need. Forced passage means the United States Navy can punch a hole through the threat when the mission is worth the risk. Those are not the same things. And that is the first and probably the most important part of this Hormuz trap. Iran does not need to sink an American destroyer to create chaos. They will never do that. They only need to make the waterway dangerous enough for all of these people, these shipping companies, these insurers, and these operators to say, we're not sending our crews through that. This afternoon, according to CBS, and U.S. officials, the Iranian cruise missile strike on the French vessel, the CGM San Antonio, injured a number of vessels' Filipino crew. Since then, 3 separate incidences have been reported by UKMTO. This come out about an hour ago. So the Iranians are still lobbing missiles at these ships. And that's where they come into this. Because if they were to sink one of these ships with the draft, the length, the load that these ships are carrying, it would block the entire Strait of Hormuz. Probably for months, if not, I hate to say it, years. That's how you close a strait if Iran really wants to go down that route. Now, the one thing that I find very, very interesting is that Iran's lead negotiator just landed in Beijing. That's him here, and this is the Chinese delegation that he's meeting with. This is the Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Arachi. He landed in Beijing today. Guess who's going to Beijing in about a week? The President of the United States. When I said that Iran had a lot of pressure on them, I meant it. And the pressure is coming from Beijing. China is on its last legs. They can't get the oil to keep the production going. So for all of you shopping at Walmart, where everything is made in China, that's why the prices of things in China or in Walmart are going up, because your favorite, neighborhood market can't get the rubber dog crap flown in cheaply. That's why. And a lot of their container ships are probably full and stuck. So this is such a multifaceted situation. But when you throw Iran's negotiator, their foreign minister, going to Beijing into the equation, then that changes a lot. That changes the entire game, right? And the Strait of Hormuz is not just some random strip of water. It's a bottleneck. And the bottleneck is getting tighter. Think about that. If you're a ship inside the Persian Gulf and you want to pass and you want out, you got to pass through the Hormuz. There's no back door, no easy alternate route. And I think that's where a lot of people are losing focus is. We have to keep it open. We have to remember that this Iranian regime cannot stay in charge. And I think Iran knows that. Iran understands the leverage they have. They understand the pressure they have from China on them. And they probably understand how quickly they are losing their capabilities, how quickly they are losing their leverage, because they are. I'm going to land the plane here. If shipping companies start to believe Hormuz is a gamble, Iran gains leverage without winning a naval war. We can understand that. And that is why this moment is bigger than 2 destroyers. It's bigger than 2 commercial vessels. It is bigger than 1 headline. This is about whether the United States still has the deterrence, the clarity, and the will to keep one of the most important sea lanes on Earth open. And right now, that question is being tested in real time. That is the Hormuz Trap. And we're about to find out whether Project Freedom is the beginning of restored deterrence or just the first move into a much longer, probably more destructive fight. Smash a like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.